I am going to jump right in here. So first thing I want to do is welcome everyone to the Future City Experience. Thank you all for giving up some of your very precious time and sharing your passion about engineering and STEM with the next generation. My goal for this session is tonight, or this evening, or this afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. My goal is that you all feel comfortable and confident and ready, and you have what you need to take on this mentor role for the next few months with us. So I'm going to start by just going over again, what exactly is the Future City Experience, or as we like to refer to it, FCE. Hopefully this is a bit of a refresher for most of you. So the Future City Experience is essentially a design challenge. And students in grades 6, 7, 8, so about 11, 12, 13 years old, they are invited to imagine, design, and build a model of a city 100 years in the future. So right away, that's a pretty complex challenge that we're giving them, right? If you start to think about, well, what's involved in designing a city, there's a lot of different systems that you can think about, a lot of different directions that you can go, everything from wastewater to energy to infrastructure, residential. It's very complex. And then add on to that, it's 100 years in the future. So bring on the creativity. Start to think about what are the technologies that exist today and how are we using them? And then what can they look like 100 years from now, right? Pretty fun to try and do that mind exercise. And then in addition to that, we also attach a theme. So every year we've had a different theme that goes along with the Future City Experience. This is actually our 3rd year running the program. And so this year, the theme is waste-free future. So they're thinking about concepts like circular economy and sustainability and how they can integrate those ideas into their future city designs. So they're going to be working on this challenge over the course of a few months. So starting, actually today's February 1st, so happy February, everyone. So starting today, we actually kicked off the event with the students and the educators. They're invited to some kickoff events. We had 2 today, one in French and one in English, where they had the opportunity to meet some subject matter experts around sustainability and circular economy and city design. And so from today forward, they'll be launching into their challenges and thinking about planning and putting together teams and designs and ideas, and then eventually building models or turning their ideas into reality. That might be a better way to say it. And then the program culminates with a showcase event in May. And so the students in the classes are invited to join the showcase where they get to present their city designs to a panel of engineers. Spoiler alert, that is all of you. We bring you back to the showcase as the engineer panels. So they present their designs to a panel of engineers. You get to have a little Q&A with them. Then you do a very short deliberation to decide if the students' designs are worthy of an engineering stamp. So it's really fun few months. And I tell you all of this because for one, I want you to be informed, but also I want you to understand that this particular program is not a competition. In fact, it's actually derived from a competition, the Future City competition, that is hosted by an organization in the US called Discovery. And we set up this particular version of the program, I'll say, in this way for a few kind of strategic reasons. The first one being when we launched this program, it was right in the middle of COVID. So we didn't have the ability to have in-person events and get into classrooms and that sort of thing. So we wanted it to be very flexible and adaptable. We knew the teachers were dealing with a lot at that time, and the students, of course, as well. So we really wanted to create something that was going to work for that situation. And then also we recognized that there may be some educators that wanted to sort of, I'll say, test out the Future City program without committing to the full competition, because it's a huge commitment on their part. So this was our way of being able to give them sort of a taste of what Future Cities is all about. So what's going to happen in the coming weeks now is that you all will be assigned a Future City class. So you will be an engineer mentor for one of the classes participating in this program. And the commitment that we ask from you is to visit with that class at least 3 times over the duration of the program. So generally speaking, that's once in February, once in March, once in April. And I'll go into a little more detail sort of what can happen during those visits, but our primary goal, our primary objective with this program is very simply to raise awareness about engineering. So I want you to keep that in mind as you are thinking about how you are interacting with these classes and these students. Oh, sorry, I've got 2 screens going. I'm trying to find my map. There it is. Okay, so getting into what I want to talk to all of you about this evening. So you are all challenged, I guess I'll put this is a challenge for all of you, to essentially engineer a classroom experience for these students. That's how I want you to think about it. I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to give you some science that you can then apply to designing the classroom experience. So we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about some of those tools. We're going to talk about creating connections through storytelling, some interventions that you can integrate so that you are thinking about the messaging that you're bringing to those students in a diverse and inclusive way, some unique challenges around virtual connections. And then we'll get into sort of the nuts and bolts, the resources around the program. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have as well. To start off, I really liked this quote I found from Ralph Ellison: "Education is all a matter of building bridges." And whenever I go into a classroom with a new group of students, I like to ask them, just to get a sense of their awareness of engineering, I like to ask them, what do you think engineers do? And inevitably, the #1 answer is build bridges. So I don't know about the experience of everyone that's on the call today. I myself was trained as a chemical engineer. I've never built a bridge, although when I did this session yesterday, someone did point out that like chemical bonds are kind of like a bridge. But I really liked this concept of education being about building bridges. And this is a really special, unique opportunity that we have to build a bridge between the education community and the engineering community and the education community, and our kind of world as engineers, and build a bridge to the curriculum and the subjects and the math and the science that students are working so hard on every day. Objectives of the program, as I mentioned, the #1 goal for us is to raise awareness about engineering. So you getting in front of a class of students, them seeing your face and meeting you as a person, that's a win in our books. Now, again, we'll go over some of the ways you can set that up or engineer that experience to be one that's going to have an impact. But we just want to get the kids curious. Grades 6, 7, 8. I don't know if you can remember back to when you were that age, but there's some big decisions coming up in their pretty near future. And so this is a really prime opportunity for us to start to get them thinking about their options. And engineering, well, it's a pretty stealth profession, right? We work behind the scenes a lot of the time. Kids, they're connecting with on a daily basis, right? Teachers and doctors and maybe firemen and policemen, hopefully not on a daily basis, but these are the professions that they see. Engineering is largely behind the scenes. So this is a really special opportunity for us to put a face to that profession and help them understand we do more than build bridges, right? It's also a really unique opportunity to support our hardworking educators and help to bring the STEM curriculum to life. And teachers absolutely love when they can bring these experiences into the classrooms to help those light bulbs start to go off for their students. I was talking to a new mentor, I don't know if he's on the call today, the other day, but he described it as igniting. And I loved that word. I was like, yes, that's what we're trying to do. Just ignite them so that they are inspired as they go forward over the next few years. So I talked already about some of the tools that you can use to engineer an experience in the classroom. So the first tool you have in your tool belt is storytelling. So remember, you're talking to grades 6, 7, 8, and we want to connect with them. And if we can connect with them on an emotional level or in an emotional way, well, those are the memories that are really going to stay with us. Those are the memories that are going to last and have an impact. And I'm sure as you think back on different choices you had to make or people that influenced you in your life, you're remembering that because it triggered some strong emotion in you. So storytelling is a really powerful tool that we can use to create these connections. And I want to acknowledge that as engineers, and if you've been maybe in the working world for some time now, this is maybe a tool that we haven't used for some time, and that's okay. That is completely normal. We understand. In fact, that's specifically why we design these types of programs so that you have more than one chance to talk to the students, because it can take some practice. I've been working on this for years now, and I think I still have some opportunities for improvement. But storytelling is a really great way to create and build these connections and build these bridges. It's also a wonderful way to reconnect to your own engineering identity. As you think about your personal story, your past, your journey, it forces you to reflect. And when we get caught up in the day-to-day, right, like our calendars are full and our inboxes are full and we're trying to meet every deadline, we can lose that a little bit. So I really want you to take this time for yourself as well, to think about how you're connecting authentically to that engineering identity, because that's going to come through when you tell your stories to the students. They're gonna know if you are being fake or if you are really being true to yourself. So how do you do this? I do know that I have an audience full of engineers, so I definitely wanted to break this down for you in a way that you can kind of map it out. So I already talked about step 1, reflect. Just think back. What were some of the choices you made? What were some of the favorite memories you had growing up? People that influenced you? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome? This is really going to set the stage for you as a human being. If you put yourself in the position of the people you're talking to, right? If you can think about what you were like at that age, it's going to help you be relatable for those kids. And that leads me right into step number 2. I promise I didn't do that on purpose. That was just lucky. Know your audience. So another great tip here, best practice, is once you get introduced to your teacher, to your educator, see if you can get some insight into the class that you are matched with. What are they interested in? What's going on in there? Maybe their local school community. And that will help you prepare yourself so that when you do visit them, if there's anything unique you need to know about them, you'll have that information in advance. Next up is identify yourself as a human. We like to say that we take a human first approach when we talk to kids about engineering. So I'm sure that many of you here have gone through extensive, education. We've all worked really hard and, are very proud of what we've accomplished and the letters that come after our name, and as we should be. But now's the time to sort of put that to the side a little bit. And we want to talk to these young people as human beings. What are some of the things that favorite foods you have, favorite movies, music that you like? Do you like to go hiking? Are you someone who loves to watch hockey? Setting the stage in that way helps them feel connected to you and allows them to open up to you to ask questions that maybe they wouldn't if they felt more intimidated. Unpack your reasons. And this is sort of tied into also, don't forget the why. During the kickoff event earlier today, there was a question that came up about, is engineering really hard? And the answer was, yes, engineering is something that is really hard. We're dealing with complex systems, complex problems. We work really hard to be able to solve these things. But we do it for good reason. And this is something that doesn't get talked about enough within the education system. Students are often told, as I'm sure many of you are on this call, hey, if you're good at math and science, you should go into engineering. Great, love it, of course. But we want to expand on that and talk more about why engineers work so hard and use the tools of math and science. Maybe it's because you love helping people. Maybe it's because you want to be challenged and you love overcoming those challenges. Maybe it's because you want to make the world a better place. So you need to unpack those reasons and talk about your why. What is it that keeps you going when things do get hard? Because guess what? We can do hard things, and that's a message that the students really do need to hear. I am trying to keep on an eye on the chat. Yes, Amy, don't worry. This session is being recorded, and I will share the slides, and I will share a link to the recording and any of the resources that I share as well. Do's and don'ts. Okay, so again, if you are someone perhaps that has not presented to a younger audience for some time, don't worry about it. You are in good company here. So some tips for you. So do tell your story with enthusiasm and emotion. Remember, we're not in a boardroom. We're going to lose their attention. The attention span of students these days is shrinking. So you want to bring that energy. And by the way, the energy in the classroom is contagious. So try and tap into that energy and soak it up. If you can, try and rehearse your story. Get comfortable with the key talking points. As I mentioned, we specifically designed these programs so that you will get more than one opportunity to talk to the kids. That means you have more than one opportunity to share your story with them as well. So practice. Be descriptive, go beyond the facts. Again, just the idea here of this isn't a formal report that you're delivering to your leadership team. These are little human beings that are curious and they think in ways that maybe we don't think. So don't be afraid to be descriptive when you're interacting with them. And that leads right into, don't tell your story as if it's a business presentation, right? We really want to bring that personal touch and create that emotional connection. And then try and stay on agenda, maybe I'll say. One of the things that I want to point out is that we're very lucky to be invited into these classrooms. Teachers have a lot to cover in a year. It's a challenge for them just to fit the whole curriculum into their year. So inviting us into the classroom is a very special opportunity. So we don't want to waste that time. So definitely want you to tell your story and get the students to know you, but try to maybe set yourself a time limit and stick to that so that you're respectful of that time. If you would like some additional help with mapping out your engineering story, we have designed a little storyboard PDF that you can download. Like I just mentioned, I will be sharing this slide, so you can click and download it here. I can also just attach a copy of the storyboard tool as well. Okay, next up in our tool belt is diverse and inclusive messaging. And we like to start with why. I mean, we all have our own kind of personal reasons of why we connect to this, or why we feel this may or may not be important. But as engineers, I like to remind everyone that we're solving problems for our communities, for our societies. So if we don't represent the society or the community that we're solving these problems for, then we're at risk of having gaps in our solutions, right? And the good news is there is some really interesting science, some social science in this case, that we can take and apply to engineer these classroom experiences in a diverse and inclusive way. And I'm going to get right to it. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. So what can you do? We have 5 actions that we recommend that you try and integrate into the experience. So the first one is to model respect for women and minorities. So you may or may not be aware that every year Engineers Canada publishes the number of licensed female engineers in the country. We're currently sitting just under 20%. So we have some work to do to try and get that number up. And so this is a very, very special opportunity to be able to do this, because you're talking to possibly the next generation of engineers. So if you can make sure that you are specifically modeling that respect, a good opportunity particularly is in a lot of cases, we know that the educators that have signed up for the program are female, they're women. So show that they're your partner in this program, and that you're working together and you have that respect for each other, and let the students see that. Maybe you don't know the answer to something and you have to ask the teacher for her help, and you're respectfully using that information in the session that you're in. Be relatable. We talked about this already, but human first approach. Maybe I need to make that an acronym, HFA. A great way to think about this, try using non-gendered examples if you can. So like I was suggesting, what are some of your favorite foods? What sports do you like? What music do you like to listen to? Again, if you can get some insights from the teacher on what the class is interested in, then that's a good way to know in advance, oh, there's interest in a particular I don't know, sports team. I keep going to sports. We play a lot of sports in my house. So maybe you can look up what the score was of the latest game or something. And then finally, promote a growth mindset. So this is something that we're actually seeing more and more in classrooms these days, which is incredible. We're very excited to see this. But this is the idea of learning from failure. The idea that our brains aren't static. We're not, born a certain way and then we can't work hard to get to what we want to do. We know that that's not true now. So thinking about how we can talk to the students about failure, and particularly with this design challenge, there are going to be failures. This is a complex challenge. And engineers, well, I don't know about all of you, but I like to tell the students, as an engineer, I love it when we fail because that's giving me information. And specifically, you can tie this into the engineering design process. So talking about how we take complex ideas, we break them down, we come up with possible solutions, we test them, we fail, get information, and then make iterations and just keep going round and round and round. By the way, if you are joining us from Ontario, or if you're matched with a school that's in Ontario, this academic year, the science curriculum was updated, and it now specifically includes, for the first time ever, the engineering design process in the curriculum. So this is a wonderful way to support educators with that new requirement in the curriculum and talk about growth mindset at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't the last one. I said there was 5 and I got mixed up. There's 2 more. Look at that. See, engineers make mistakes, right? Maintain high standards. So I'm going to let you know that this one was very counterintuitive for me at the start. So what we're talking about here is, let's say you have a group that's working on, we'll use a bridge building challenge because we've been talking about bridges. So maybe they're working on a bridge building challenge and they're struggling and their bridge just can't seem to hold the weight requirements that you've set out. And so from the goodness of your heart, you really want them to succeed. So you may be inclined to come up to them and say, oh, don't worry, we'll let you, your bridge only has to hold 5 pounds, not 10 pounds. Well, of course, you're coming from the goodness of your heart and you want them to succeed, but the way that message is actually received based on the studies is they are hearing that as you don't believe in them. You don't think that they can do it. And that's definitely not the message that we want to send. So instead, what we recommend for your approach when you see a group that's struggling with a particular challenge is to be a cheerleader for them. Acknowledge that it's hard. Yeah, I can see this is really hard for you. And wow, I mean, I've struggled with things as well, but I believe in you and I think that you can do it. So I'll help you out if we need to, or we can look at some other resources, but let's work through this together so that we can succeed. And then of course, valuing diversity. So we talked about this a little bit already, but as engineers, we have a responsibility to the public, to our societies. And if we are designing solutions to societal problems and we don't have that diversity in our own teams, then we are at risk for having gaps in our solution. So diversity is very valued in the engineering profession, and be strategic with it. If you're going to be showing pictures, make sure you're including that in your pictures. And other ways, maybe you can integrate into, I don't know, videos that you might be showing. But if it comes up in conversation, that's how I like to talk about it, is to recognize that we all think differently. And going back to my favorite topic of sports, we in this house are a hockey family, so I like to use the analogy of a hockey team. And what makes up a good hockey team is when you have someone who's strong as a goalie, someone who's strong as a forward, someone who's strong defensively. And we can't take those people and switch them. Like, I can't imagine taking a goalie and putting them out as a centerman, right? So we want to value all of the unique skills that we bring to that team so that together we are stronger. All right, so another wonderful quote I thought that all of you would appreciate, but I've learned that I still have a lot to learn. And I left this in here also as a reminder for myself, because I wanted to make sure that I brought this point up with all of you, that if you get in a situation in the class and they ask you, the students ask you a question and you don't know the answer, instead of trying to fumble your way through it, it is very, very powerful to let the students know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I make mistakes too. I just modeled that for you with my last slide, right? Engineers, we are human beings. We don't know everything. We make mistakes too. We are, that makes us who we are. And maybe we can work through and learn this together, or I'll go away and do some research and come back and find the answer, or whatever makes the most sense. But we all always have lots to learn. All right, last up in our series of tools that I want to make sure you have in your tool belt for designing an experience in the classroom is all about connection. So there's two main connections that you are trying to make over the next few months. The first one is with the teacher. And over the years that we've done the different programs we run, we know that if you have a strong connection with the teacher, everything goes smoothly. So keep that in mind. So some of the things that you can do to strengthen that connection, you want to try and build trust with them. We have a tendency, especially these days, and if we're connecting virtually, to kind of default to the technology and be thinking only about, maybe the challenge, the design challenge itself or whatever. Please pause and take a minute and think about the people, the teachers behind that, and yourself as well. Like, what do you have going on in your life? What's the teacher dealing with? Is it report card season for them right now? Or like, acknowledge that. And that goes a long way to developing that relationship. Communication is so, so important. I know all of you know this. And it does always happen, but hopefully it's usually the rare case where you're unable to connect with your teacher, or vice versa. They're unable to connect with you for some reason. Usually it ends up being some sort of misunderstanding, or emails are being diverted to a junk or a spam folder. The school boards have some really, really wonderful firewalls in place. So if they're not used to seeing emails from external people, sometimes they end up like that, or maybe where you work as well, it's like that. So once you get that connection, try and spend some time specifically talking about communication. How do they like to communicate? Do they prefer email? Do you have all the right securities and safeties checked off? Or do they prefer texts or WhatsApp or whatever? Like, figure out what's going to work best for you and them in that situation. Of course, be efficient. As I mentioned, we are very lucky to be invited into these classrooms and have the teachers give up some of their very valuable classroom time for this design challenge. So just try and stay focused, stick to an agenda maybe, and be respectful of everyone's time. And then lastly, please don't forget to celebrate the wins. We can kind of get caught up in the to-do list and what's coming up and all the things that have to get done. But building a relationship, when you're specifically have that objective of building that relationship, take some time to think about what are the wins. Maybe there's a group that was struggling and they've made some progress, or you, I don't know, got to your meetings on time or stuck to your agenda. Acknowledge them. It goes a long way to building that connection. And then, of course, very, very importantly, is building a relationship with the students. So I like to start off with this really good graphic here on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I am not going to pretend to be a social scientist in any way, but just recognizing that there are some very base level needs that children have. And if those needs aren't being met, they can't get to a place where we're igniting curiosity and helping them feel a sense of belonging and thinking about where they're going next in their journey. So just for you to really be aware of and conscious of, and maybe the teacher can give you some insights here. And also from your side, thinking about how you can build that trust with the students so that you can work your way up the triangle. So how do you do that? How can you foster a sense of belonging? Don't overthink this one. Learn their names if you can. And I'm the worst one to say this because I'm absolutely terrible with names. So if you can't learn all of their names, and that is particularly challenging if it's a virtual connection. So if you can't learn their names, at least when you're interacting with one of the students, get them to tell you their name so that you can use their name back to them in the conversation. And I mean, just imagine for yourself how that feels when someone's using your name. Find out what they want to talk about. What are they interested in? You don't have to spend your entire block of time with them going over a list of bullet points that you might have all around sustainability and circular economy and I don't know, buildings and structures and that sort of thing. Specifically spend some time just checking in with them. Hey, how's it going? What did you do? What did you all do on the weekend? And letting them know that you have that personal interest. And then of course, let them know you are so excited to see them again. We want you to be their biggest cheerleaders. Of course, they're going to want to, show to you when you show up the next time, look at what I did. And they're going to want to see how excited you are about everything that they've accomplished. Lastly, and this is very selfish on our part, but please keep us in the loop. Once we turn you over to the teachers, we largely lose visibility of what's going on in the classrooms. So we love it when we can get a window into the classroom. Some of the teachers are particularly good at this. When there's special things happening in their classroom, they like to snap pictures and sometimes they'll post them up on Twitter, which we love. But please keep us in the loop. Send us a quick email. Let us know you had a visit and how it went. We'd love to get those kinds of messages. Okay, so now I promise the nuts and bolts of what's going on. So you all have your tools now, your tool belts to design a incredible engineering experience in the classroom. So now what's next? So today we had the kickoff event. If you are interested in finding out what we covered at those kickoff events, there are replays available if you wanted to just, out of your own curiosity, kind of listen in to what our subject matter experts had to say. You are more than welcome to do that. I will be sure to include those links when I send out all the information. Next week, so the week of February 6th, is when we'll be sending out the Meet Your Mentor emails. So please keep an eye on your inbox. You'll receive an email from us connecting you with the educator. Once you get that email, your next step should be to hit reply all and introduce yourself to the teacher and maybe try and get a meeting set up with them just to nail down some of those kind of logistical things. And then of course, between February and end of April, so over the next few months, that's when you'll be doing your classroom visits. As I mentioned, the time commitment we've asked from you is 3 visits over the course of that time. So probably once in February, once in March, once in April, but it is very flexible. You are completely empowered to set those dates and times with your educator and figuring out what works well for you and what works well for them in their class. And then we are, as I mentioned, working towards the showcase. And that's when you take off your mentor hat and you put on your engineering panelist hat. So we expect that we will have quite a lot of participation at the showcase. So we need all the help that we can get to get through all of the presentations. May the 10th is the date for the English event, and May the 11th is the date for the French event. So there will be more information to come as we get closer to that event, so that you all have everything you need to feel prepared for that. I don't want to throw it all at you all at once. Recommended resources. So this list was provided to the teachers, but if you want to explore them a little bit yourself, just to see what they have access to, you can check out all of these resources. So these are all linked. They're basically PDF handouts. Like this one's about how to build your city model. This one's a link to some future cities of the past that have been built, just for like a source of inspiration. Some specific resources around zero waste. So links to, I think we've got like some YouTube videos and other websites that are really appropriate for this age. City presentation tips. So as they're working towards the showcase, they're going to want some practice and preparation on doing those. And then the template that they'll use for the showcase, it's a PDF or a PowerPoint template. And if we have time, I'll actually show you that template, because it's good for you to understand kind of how we've broken down and segmented the city sort of sections. I want to make sure you all know that we're all here to help you. If you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. So we have our wonderful partners at Engineers Canada. Kim Buffard is helping us out, myself, and my very esteemed colleague, who I think is with us maybe this evening, Sarah Rishu. I think a lot of you have been talking to her as well. We are here to help you get the most out of this, so that you can make the most for the teachers and the students that have signed up. Lastly, if you are looking to connect even beyond or connect with some of the other mentors that are involved in this program, all of us on the call here today, we do have a Discord server set up, and there is a specific channel for the Future City Experience. So you are more than welcome to join our Discord server and send messages of encouragement back and forth and share stories of what's going on in the classroom on our Discord server. That's it. That is my last slide. So I am going to, I will open it up for Q&A. I think with the number of people we have, it's probably best if you could put your questions in the chat. I'm just going to scan through and see if I missed anything. I see a point here from Rezan. One point I believe is important to somehow relate to inclusivity is to try and involve shy students in the discussion and give them some spotlight so they feel comfortable in sharing their opinions and speaking up. Yes. I mean, this is all about building trust, right? And helping them feel comfortable so that, and that they're in a safe space so that their voice can be heard. Ash, technical question. Circular economy is a challenging concept to understand. Any suggestions on how to help grade 6 to 8 students understand and implement it? Absolutely. In fact, you bring up a good point. So grade 6 to 8 was the target audience for this challenge. But we do actually have some participations from even younger students. And I've put together a little one-pager on our recommendations for how to break this down for younger students. So remember, this is not a competition. You can adapt and adjust, and the teachers have got this same message. You can adapt and adjust this program in any way. If you just want to focus on one section of a city because you want to simplify it, that's okay. Remember, our #1 goal is just to raise awareness about engineering. That is absolutely fine with us. So there's some other specific recommendations in that one-pager, Ash, that would maybe helpful for for explaining circular economy to those students. We have some links to videos and that sort of thing. But at the core too, you can kind of go back to like reduce, reuse, recycle. Thank you, Brian. I see there's a question just to me around the police reference check. So thanks for bringing that up. So if you already have a current police reference check, that's fantastic. Because you're seeing these students on a relatively regular basis, that is a requirement. If you don't have a current police reference check and you haven't yet received an email from Sterling Backcheck, please let us know. So we use an online system. Through an organization called Sterling Backcheck. And so what happens is we put the request into Sterling on your behalf, and then Sterling sends you an email. So keep an eye out for that. Check your junk mail just in case it's gone there. And if you don't have it, just let us know and we'll make sure that gets put through. Lauren, you're looking for some clarity around your actual role as a mentor. So maybe what would be helpful is if I kind of describe what to expect at each of the visits. So generally speaking, the first visit, which will probably happen in February, think of that as just an introductory visit, just getting to know the students, letting them get to know you a little bit, maybe planting some seeds for them of ideas on how to break down complex problems as an engineer, that sort of thing. The second visit, which most likely will happen in March, they most likely will have spent some time working on their designs, thinking about what they want to do. Maybe they even started with their builds. So they may have some questions for you. So if you're worried about what kinds of questions they might be asking you, reach out to the teacher and she can or he can maybe get those questions to you in advance so that you can do your homework, so to speak. The second visit, I think, is also a really great time to introduce them to the engineering design process and talking to them about how engineers use this tool, and you can relate to them, right? Like they're going through this complex challenge right now and they're having to think things through in all these different kinds of ways. So use that second visit to do a little maybe teaching in that way. And then the third visit most likely will happen sometime in April. So you could possibly use that visit as a way for them to prepare for the showcase. So maybe they can practice their presentation for you and you can ask them some questions to get them thinking. But ultimately, Lauren, again, just remember, this is about them meeting you as a person and learning more about engineering in a really unique way. So there's not really any way you can do this wrong. And please use your get feedback from your teacher and have that communication with your teacher so that you make sure that they're getting what they need from it as well. Okay, so we're done. Hopefully that covered your question as well. Are all the mentors appearing virtually? Will some be in person? Great question, Lauren. So when we do the matching, the first thing that we look at is any special requirements of the class. So for example, we do have about 30 classes that are French speaking. So we need to find French speaking mentors for them. So if you are one of our French speaking mentors, thank you so much. We really appreciate your help. The second thing that we look at is proximity. So we do our best to try and match you with a school that is relatively close by. We do that for a few reasons. For one, if you are close enough and you want to physically visit them in person, and the school is allowing it, and as far as I know at the moment, all schools are allowing external visitors, then you can do that. And a lot of people really enjoy being in that same physical space and like you can kind of feel the energy in the classroom. That's absolutely fine. However, that's not always possible. This program is open to schools across Canada. So depending on where the mentors are all living and where the schools are all located, we don't always have that luxury of matching you with a school that is close enough for you to visit in person. In addition, we do have a lot more schools that are reaching out to us in far remote locations, and we don't have engineers in those areas. So this program lends itself very, very well to virtual visits, because you're not really there for like the hands-on building part of the program. You really can be that face on a screen to have more of the conversations with those students. Actually, and you've made me think of another thing that I wanted to bring up. I mentioned that the students are imagine designing and building a model of a city. Now, the models that they're building, that's also open and flexible. So the students, and I guess the teachers have the choice if they want to do their model builds as physical builds. For example, maybe they bring in old egg cartons and yogurt containers and like paint them and put them together and make it look like a city, or they can do it as a virtual build. So some schools have access to programs like Minecraft or Tinkercad, and so they can build, they can bring their city to life in a virtual space. That is absolutely okay too. We've also told the teachers that they are, they can structure their class in whatever way works for them. So what I mean by that is traditionally what we saw with this program, and particularly for the competition version of this program, a class will get broken down into smaller groups of like 3 or 4 students. And each student group is doing a full design challenge, a full city build. There's some challenges that go along with that. Space is one of them. If they are physically building their models and the teacher only has a limited amount of space, having like 5, 6 big giant cities in your classroom for a few months is maybe not ideal. So one of the other options or approaches for how to break up the classroom is to, again, break the students into smaller groups just so it's a bit more manageable, but then have each group working on one segment. So the whole class together is then producing one city. That's a really nice option, because one of the restrictions we do have in place, one of the few restrictions that we do have in place, is for the showcase, we only allow 1 presentation per class. That's just due to kind of logistics and what we can support at this time. So if the whole class together has come up with one city, and then they present that at the showcase, it just kind of worked out really nicely. It's still definitely doable if the teacher wants to break them and have them break them up and have them all doing city builds. It can absolutely be done. They just have to pick which one gets to be presented at the showcase. Good questions. Maybe what I'll do is, if you're thinking of other questions, I'll flip over to the PowerPoint template. Maybe I'll go back. I have to bring it up here. Are you seeing that? Did that change? Can you see the slideshow? Yes, okay, yay. So this is the template of the slideshow that the teachers can use. Again, we've told them they don't have to stick to this. If they want to change it, they can completely change it, but we wanted them to have a starting point. So the first main slide here, we asked them for a picture of their full model. The main reason for that is that we like to take the presentations in advance, and we take this slide and we turn it into a gallery. So there'll be a gallery of all the cities, all the 2023 Future City Experience cities, so that students can see each other's work and some of the other ideas. And then we break it down into the different zones. So this is where, if a teacher is looking at small groups working on segments of one city, this is a nice way to do that. So one group could be working on a residential zone. One group could be working on a commercial zone, industrial zone. You're getting the idea, I think. Infrastructure, city services, transportation. There's a lot of systems that make up cities, right? And then they can start to call out their ideas that they've integrated about circular economy and sustainability. So we have a couple slides for them to do that. Sometimes they also like to include a moving part. So this is maybe for a grade 8 class or a group that's maybe a bit more advanced and the teacher wants to challenge them even more. They might have a moving part in their city. One that we see fairly often is like a motor with a fan. So maybe that's representing like a windmill for power generation or something like that. Oh, you're welcome, Ash. Thank you. Karusha, do we have a specific definition of what a city is in the context of the challenge? Nope, not really. Open for interpretation of the students. Last year, the design challenge theme was living on the moon. So we were in outer space. So they can take it in whatever direction they want. Check with your teacher on that in case they have a preference. Some of them may want to have the students think about their particular city that they're living and looking at what sorts of technology exists in their own surroundings, just to be able to have that relatable content. Some of them are cool with just imagining cities that don't even exist. Actually, I can show you the gallery from last year. Everything's none of my stuff saved because I had to reboot my computer when I had to reinstall my audio drivers. So I'm just looking at our partners for the showcase. Our partners are, oh, that's not where I wanted to go. Ontario Tech University. And they do such a wonderful job at making the showcase a really interactive and fun experience for everyone. Here's where I wanted to go. So this was our, if you're looking for the kickoff event, this is where you'll find the replay of that. And here is the gallery of cities from last year. Yes, I do, Amy. I will connect with you offline about that. But that is a really good point. And that was a message I brought to the teachers. So Amy's asking, do we have a list of the schools that are participating across Canada? Yes, we do. And I brought that up to the teachers because I wanted them to share with their students, and feel free to share this with the students as well yourselves. They are part of this national challenge, which is really neat for them to know. So just to give you a sense, here's some of the designs from last year. So you can see a lot of these are some of the physical models that were built. And some of them are like really, like they've spent a lot of time. There's a lot of detail that's gone into them. Some of them are super simple, like this one's super simple, and that's okay too. Here's one that was done in Tinkercad. So some examples of the online versions. Those are more physical ones again. I like this one. They like called out, remember this was living on the moon. So these are the aliens. Here's some more Tinkercad ones. Will the panelists be evaluating the work of the students? If yes, what standards will be followed? So then as we get closer to the showcase, we're going to give you some tools and guidance around that. Again, because it's not a competition, we don't have to be super, super strict. Really, it's more about introducing the students to the experience of presenting. In real life, as an engineer, you have to present your work to maybe a leadership team, and maybe that's something that you might be nervous about, and you get questioned on. So it's about exposing them to that experience. And then ultimately, you'll be deciding if their designs get stamped or not. And that is to help introduce them to the idea that engineering is a regulated profession. and they can start getting curious about that. Like they're definitely at sort of 11, 12 years old, they're not really gonna necessarily care what that means or fully understand it, but we just want to expose them to those ideas. Will the event be recorded? Hesham, which event are you referring to? The one right now is being recorded. The showcase, parts of it are recorded. We don't record the presentations. Those are done in private meet rooms just for privacy and security purposes with the students. But the more public parts of it, there's like a keynote that will be recorded and some interactive activities happening as well. Those are recorded as part of the showcase. Great question. I see it as 8 o'clock, so please don't feel that you need to stay. I am happy to hang around and answer any questions that anyone might have. And thank you all again so much for giving up some of your time tonight. And of course, for joining our wonderfully passionate team of volunteers to share your passions with the next generation. We very, very much appreciate it. You're welcome, everyone. Thank you. Yay, I'm so looking forward to hearing all the stories of what's going on. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, did I miss any questions? I hope not. Okay, got them all. Anyone else have any other questions? Meet the mentor, that's like just an email that will go out. We send it and we CC you and the teacher, Brian. Yeah. Yeah, that's not the first visit's not going to be next week, most likely. It takes them some time to kind of